Family, faith, and farming. How does it all tie together? I was out here doing some weed patrol with William. We've got these thistles that are the size of Christmas trees out here, and we've learned that you have to stay ahead of those in your management of the land. The sheep will help tend to a lot of different weeds in the pasture, but they don't like getting into those thistles. So that's one thing that they don't address. It just came to mind that this is such a good parable for life and like how we manage things. I was just talking with a friend the other day at our church, and something I've noticed and something we've talked about as a family is that you very rarely hear someone wake up in the morning and say, you know what, I'm going to go through a divorce this week. Like, I'm gonna purpose myself to do that. Or another person that would say, I'm gonna purpose myself today to become a raging alcoholic. Or someone who says, I'm going to purpose myself today to becoming addicted to said subject or said visual things that are talked about out there. But it's interesting because weeds in the pasture are much like the weeds of our life. If you don't tend to them, they'll take over. And something that we talk about, that I get to talk about with William and how we tend to the pasture out here, we get to relate that back to how does it apply to our family, our faith, and farming, and what's the tie-in with all of those things. And I would say the tie-in with all of those things is that if you don't tend to the weeds in your life, they'll take over. Weeds are aggressive. Weeds will grow during seasons of drought when other things start to perish. The weeds have this ability to take over the landscape if they go unchecked. And in modern culture, they talk about like, oh, we've got to let this be wild space and we can't touch it. Well, when you do that, you run into issues. You run into issues of raging forest fires because there's so much duff on the underside. And a lot of that's from invasive species or from weeds. And so in the same way, we've got to tie that into our families. We've got to tie that into our farm. We've got to tie that into our faith. If you allow a weed to take root, they will overtake. They have seed bundles in them that are so vast in numbers. And those weeds have the ability to choke out the other good things in your life. So William is over there right now running that weed whipper to get rid of the thistles specifically, because our sheep will help manage the rest of the property. But they don't like the thistles. We know that's one thing that we have to come out here and then we have to get after them. So if we let them grow, we can identify the weed once it starts to grow, and we can pick it out from the good things versus the bad things very, very easily then, right? But we don't want that weed to go to the point of where it takes root. We want to identify those things in our life that will be distracting, that will take over, and that will lead to destruction. I talk about this with the kids often when it comes to life. You know, when you start off as a youngster, your cause and actions are they're minor in the big scope of things. You know, like if you do this, you'll get hurt, right? You do something dumb now, and what? You might get, you know, a correction or whatever it would be, a talking to. But later on, when they start driving all of a sudden, if you do this, you can kill someone. Your cause and effect gets to be a lot more detrimental. Becomes, you know, play stupid games, win stupid prizes. At some point in time, the things that you do have a massive effect, and have an effect of where you can harm someone, or you can end up behind bars because of a decision that you made. What's the worst thing that you could think of that could happen if you're driving?
Crash.
Crash and what? Die. Crash and die. So either you crash and die, or you crash and hurt someone else and kill someone else, right?
Yeah.
And that's like a big cause and effect, right? So if you're not being wise in the little things now, and you're not being taught that now, you'll make probably dumber decisions later on, right?
Sure.
Is the point? Yeah, sure. There's certain decisions and there's certain actions in our life that eventually no one else is going to mitigate for us. We're going to have to decide to take it upon ourselves to mitigate those actions. Otherwise, they'll turn into pastures of
thistles.
Thistles. There you go. Good job. Let's see, he's learning, guys, right there. So it's one of those things that we just talk about with the kids here at the farm, that I love the examples and the parallel that farming and those things bring into practice here for us, it's a living example. If you don't tend to the weeds in your life, they'll take over. If you don't purpose yourself to address those issues, they'll take over. So sometimes it stinks to be honest with yourself and be like, how did I get to this point? Well, I can guarantee you probably didn't wake up in the morning and said, I'm gonna do this evil act or be this vicious person in life. But I can guarantee you at some point in time, like I talk about once again with the kids, is that there's this beautiful thing that we've been given in our check of our spirit that is almost like a stop and go light. Life is going along and it's green, everything's great, and then something happens that throws the yellow light up. It says, caution, pay attention. You're getting into a bad spot here. And then all of a sudden, if you don't acknowledge that yellow blinking light, you end up in a spot where it becomes a red light. And now you have a choice to make. Am I going to reflect on that yellow light that showed that it's attention to me? Or am I gonna blow through the red light? And am I gonna deal with the consequence or the cause of that action? So be real with yourself. Be real with yourself as a parent, as a husband, as a father, as a mom, as a daughter, as a son, whatever it is. Encourage each other today that if you see something that it's okay to approach each other in love. It's okay to approach each other in even some admonishment to say, hey, what I'm seeing isn't appropriate. What I'm seeing could lead to destruction. And it's worth taking note that you might want to acknowledge it and change your actions, change your course. And it's a fine line. Like, I don't think that we should be preaching each other all the time, but I definitely think that we should be sharing observations and sharing legitimate concern for something that we see. And if the person wants to take heed to it, great. And if they don't, that's their choice. And that's what adulting is all about, right? At some point in time, you have to start making decisions for yourself. So I just wanted to encourage you guys today to tend to the weeds in your life, acknowledge them, and eradicate them before they become a bigger issue. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button and make sure you check out the link below to our Heartway Farms community. We have a link for that in the description below. You guys have a blessed day and thanks for joining.